Okay, so we're ready to start winding on our warp. There's the loom, and my warp is lying just loose on the table. I've obviously removed it from the end peg and cut through the ends, and I've tied off my choke tie about 30 centimeters from the end. I have my separators all ready and waiting, and all that remains now is to engage the brake on the loom and to start to wind. I like to wind a full revolution of the warp onto the roller before I start putting my separators in. Once I have a full revolution of warp covering the back roller, I put in a single separator, I do a half a revolution, and I put in the next separator. Then I do half a revolution again. And then, using the strong part of my hand, using this really sort of strong, inflexible, bony part here, I like to grab my warp and really give it a good pull down over the front roller. Now, if it's a particularly wide warp, you can actually do this in sections. So let's divide this one roughly in half. You're going to pull down over the front roller, and you're going to grab it and pull down again. Then, holding it nice and tight, you're going to wind it and put another separator in. I tend to put my separators in one on top of the other. I don't know why I do this. I think it's probably just the way that I learned to do it. But a lot of people will just put the separators in quite randomly. I'm going to do half a revolution, and now I'm going to take my two little half bundles and pull down. And as you pull down on them, you will actually feel them taking up the slack that's on the roller. Hold them together. I'm going to put a separator in. Be very generous with your separations, especially if you're working with a very inflexible material like a cotton or a cotton linen blend or something like that. And you will find that the separators do slip as you're working with them. So you're going to grab and pull. Hold. Give it half a turn. Put in another separator. The more separators you put in, the better it is for the ultimate tension of your warp. What the separators do, for people who don't really understand why we actually go through this process, is as we're winding our yarn, our warp onto the warp roller, you will find that some of the threads will have a tendency to pack down into the others and through the various layers. And this can give you huge discrepancies in your tension if you're not careful. So always better to separate the different layers of your warp. Some people recommend a continuous warp separation, so you would use a really thick paper or several sheets of newspapers or something like that on your warp, and it would give a continuous separation. I like to do that if I'm working with a very fine or a very fragile warp. Then I will prefer to use a continuous separation. But for our purposes here, the cardboard strips that come with the Ashford looms, and they are obviously always available, just do a fantastic job. So you can see we're getting to the end of our warp now. Give it a good pull. Ow. And you want to feel it getting really nice and firm onto that roller. Half a turn. Another half. I'm going to hold it again, give it half a turn, pull it down. This part of the process eventually sort of becomes something where you find your own rhythm. You will figure out how it's going to work best for you. And you can see I'm beginning to struggle here because my choke tie is coming forward. So I think this will be my last pair of separators. There we go, and made it with one to spare. And just give it another good pull as much as you can. And now I'm at the end of my warp and I'm ready to start pulling through the holes.